Welcome to the lost kingdom of podcasts, the Bladtcast. We have built up this kingdom, but it's been seemingly lost for thousands of years. As always, I am Christian Blatt. That is the Grand Poobah Emeritus of the Bladtcast. I don't know what your title is. Will Starling.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a title. I'm just not sure exactly what it is. And also welcoming back to the show, Thomas Parham. Tom, thank you for joining us. I know it's a tad late where you are. And not joining us for this, although he often would for a DC movie, our pal Raging Rhino, who mentions in the chat, I'm not seeing the movie until tomorrow, so I'll have to watch this later. But I want to wish Bladtcast Nation a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Cheers. But obviously, here at the Bladtcast, you know we do celebrate Life Day. So happy Life Day to you, Raging Rhino. And I think it's important that we establish that we'll eventually be talking about this movie with any and all spoilers attached to it. But before we get to that, I know my buddy Will Starling has some big news, huge news. Couldn't believe when I found it out. Will Starling, you have an iPhone now.
Oh yes!
Oh my gosh!
I thought you were going to talk about something else.
No. I know. Yeah, I know you thought I was going to talk about something.
That even Tom has that big of reaction. Like the world stopped today when people have found out that
I texted back to you earlier today, and the message came up blue.
Yeah,
I was like, it can't be. It just cannot.
One of us.
Yeah, and I'm doing this podcast now from my new MacBook Pro. So to be honest, I had to humble myself and my ego and belief that the Android is still a superior operating machine. But I have a project that requires fluidity of workflow, and Apple makes it easier for the rest of the world and myself to be able to contribute to this project. So, it only made sense. And I'm too old to care about these stupid things like phone and identity, whatever.
Yeah. And, I allowed myself to get bullied into joining the iPhone ranks. And it was very simple because my wife was like, well, don't you want to be able to FaceTime with the kids? And there's only so many times that you're like, oh, I could Zoom, I could Skype, yeah, right. And the only other holdout that I really knew, other than Jason Blair, I believe he's a ride or die for Android. But my brother-in-law, Richard, who was on the show a few months back when the Dungeons and Dragons movie came out, he really dug in. He really did not want to, but having him in our family group chat just really messes up anytime you share a video, which was part of the reason I got bullied into it. So Will Starling,
I took forcing all of my friends to get WhatsApp so that way we could all have a group chat where things could move smoothly.
Right, exactly. And so Will Starling, I would like to extend to you a patented Bladtcast. Welcome to the party, pal, because now you're here. And then also other big news. Will, I know once upon a time you swore that you would rather die than get a fake Christmas tree.
You saw that face. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I believe.
Oh, I should plug it in so I can show it.
Yeah. Well, I believe when you commented, when you posted that, I commented the exact same thing. I did indeed give you an official John McClane. Welcome to the party, pal.
That's right. Two for two this month.
Yeah.
But I got.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I have a lot of kind of retro decorations and stuff in this little dining area, and I didn't want to deal with tree. I'm also the month of December. I'm not home like a majority of the month,
right.
So I was like, I'm just gonna do I'm gonna forsake Charlie Brown and get like a sort of throwback aluminum Christmas tree style, Well,
I for one love that tree. And Will, the real big news that you have, of course, involves something that we've been talking about for a long time on the show, and it's not just the return of the motivation report.
That's right. A lot of things. Oh, the book.
Yeah, the book.
Yes. The debut novel, which I feel like that's what people say because it sounds fancy, but it's just like that's a first book. But that's how you try to get people stoked on the fact that this is the first book that you're actually releasing.
And I think long-term listeners or viewers of the Bladtcast should be very excited because it's another step to the world domination of the Will Tirage. The book is available for pre-orders, correct?
That's correct. It's called Fame by Misadventure. Amazon and Barnes & Noble are the fastest place to find it for pre-order. And bookshop.org, some other things. I think Goodreads, it's on there, and all those like kind of bookie websites. But most people do Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But today we took another step in the Will Tirage. I hope you bring that up. I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, yeah. No. We'll welcome everybody to the party because Will is now, on his way to, being a published author. So again, we'll talk in general terms for a little while, and I'll try and flash something up on the screen and leave it there when we really dive into the spoilers. But Will, this was also the first time that you and I actually were officially labeled as an entourage. Thanks to American Multi Cinemas, which is the full name for
AMC.
Exactly.
Is that what that stands for? I just
my son asked me very recently, so I had to look it up. So American Multi Cinemas is the name of the company. Yes, indeed. You and I were part of the same entourage, the Will Tirage. And if you see that image for our visual audience, you can see that Thomas, you were there with us in spirit.
In spirit.
Yeah. So we put you up on the big screen so that the little screen, but it's because there you are, really dressed for the part. Me, of course, I always like to wear the away team's jersey when I go into any kind of battlefield or court. So I did wear my Marvel sweatshirt. It actually wasn't entirely intentional. It was doing something crazy in Los Angeles today. It was raining. It's been raining. And, you remember enough, Tom, that, there's a lot that goes to that. So we did
also be known that in the name of the holiday, the hat that I was wearing in the photo says Les Incompetents for Kevin McAllister of Home Alone,
Look at that. Will, I sort of want to leave you in the big window because if anybody deserves it, it's Will, but it's all right. So we did indeed earlier today go, actually, Will and I was still in the parking lot at the Grove an hour ago. I was going way down, zigzagging down and down and down, but had enough time to have dinner with the kids. So we did indeed see it. And Tom, I know you saw it before we did. And thank you for sitting through an 8-minute preamble. But there's a lot of excitement going on here in Bladtcast Nation, and we wanted to share it with everyone. Tom, I'd like to let you go first. Your overall expectations heading into Aquaman 2 after the first one, and then you can sort of dovetail into what you actually thought once you were sitting in the seat and watching it.
I mean, to everyone's surprise, Aquaman 2 pre-Barbie was Warner Brothers' second highest grossing movie ever.
You mean the first Aquaman was?
Aquaman 1.
Yes, right. Correct. Yeah.
Which caught everybody off guard. I mean, it was a sleeper hit. And to say this production was troubled is an understatement. A buddy of mine who works in the industry told me at Comic-Con that they had gone through multiple sets of reshoots and it was testing really poorly. And we didn't see trailers. I don't think we saw a teaser trailer with Flash for Aquaman.
Nope, you didn't.
And I think we saw a little something with Blue Beetle. Yeah. So expectations were low. I mean, how are you going to top the sleeper hit? And then there's the whole Amber Heard, Johnny Depp mess.
Oh, yeah.
Which, can we just accept that they're both horrible people, except for he's a better actor?
I couldn't even, there was so many people were so into that stuff that I was like, I have other things to do that I still don't really understand what any of it was about, and I'm going to remain that way.
I think that there's some key things to do with it, but you can understand from a marketing standpoint, it was not necessarily something that Warner Brothers wanted to have to deal with. And I've talked about this before, and we'll probably talk about it again. the way that this film was marketed, to Tom's point, once they did start marketing it, you would have no idea that Amber Heard is in this movie. They talk about family all the time. So you would infer that Nicole Kidman was playing his wife in this movie, except of course she's his mother. But so, there was finally like the last trailer I saw Amber Heard for like a second. And I'm like, I bet that's some language in the contract that she needs to be in at least one of the trailers. But yeah, and I think that that's a bit of a problem because, she's, in the news in a way far different than Ezra Miller was. But again, you're having somebody getting people's attention for the wrong reason. So you have to figure how to deal with that. It's interesting. I'm watching the number of live viewers. Once we started actually talking about the movie, the number dwindled by quite a bit. So it's just interesting.
Well, oh, fuck Aquaman. I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah, they're like, oh, Will, I got to go. Well, you know what they did? They probably all went to go pre-order the book.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. They can multitask. Just open a new tab. It's fine.
So, all right, Tom. So you get to actually see the film. You get to see Aquaman. It's not even called Aquaman 2: The Lost Kingdom. It's just Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom. So what did you think, sir?
I was pleasantly surprised. I don't think anybody will dispute that the two best actors in the franchise are Nicole Kidman, when she's not doing a weird accent and she's speaking in her plain, standard American English accent versus some things I've heard her do. And then Patrick Wilson, big Patrick Wilson fan ever since Angels in America and Little Children. And, he's just been in so many good things. Watchmen, all three versions of Watchmen that Zack Snyder made. But I thought it was interesting that they leaned into the family aspect was present, but it was basically a redemption arc for Ocean Master, and I've never really liked Ocean Master, the character from the comics, because he didn't make any sense. I wasn't sure how they were related. He was just evil and didn't have any nuance. And they did a really good job, even in this movie that the first movie didn't do, giving him a real character to play. So I thought that was a smart move. What's fascinating, I'm a big Aqua fan. And there were a lot of storylines, kind of in typical Marvel fashion. DC doesn't do it as well as Marvel has, but they took a lot of storylines over Aquaman's 80-year history and put him in a Cuisinart. Because, this is a spoiler alert for the comic books from the 70s. In the original Aquaman title run, before they started rebooting at the drop of a hat, when Black Manta finally took off his helmet, we found out he was indeed black, and he killed Aquababy. And so when he says, I'm going to kill everybody you care about, I'm like, please, I hope in the 21st century we're not going to kill a cute little baby. So, but no, I thought Manta's also, they leaned into Yahya Abdul-Mateen II won an Emmy for Best Supporting for Watchmen, the miniseries on HBO.
Sure.
And so he was front and center as the primary villain, since you're turning, the sibling rivalry, we get a redemption arc for Orm, but Black Manta is front and center as the bad guy, and he's found this black trident. And Kordax is a character from the comics. Did they do him like they did him in the comics? No, but get over it. It's the movies. There's so many years. Literally decades of Aquaman's history. Peter David and Jeff Johns, and going back to Jim Aparo. I forget who was the writer on the late 70s run, but they pulled a lot of strings. Plus, Jason Momoa was the one who came out with the environmentally conscious arc, which I thought that's fitting because, the whole thing with Atlantis, and it's funny because Talokan, the Marvel MCU version of Atlantis, also has this anti-surface dweller thing going on, but tying it all together to give it further impetus to, have Aquaman caught in the middle, because Manta's a surface dweller who's basically accelerating global warming. So I was pleasantly surprised. is a great art.
Let me interject on that point, Tom, because I think a lot of times a movie has a message of an actual real world global problem, and sometimes it works really well, and other times it just feels so forced in there. This was very logical to say, like, well, yeah, here's what they're doing, and here's the impact. They're trying to warm up the earth so that they can, unfreeze the sky. And so this was definitely one of those instances where you're like, yeah, it completely makes sense. And at one point, Manta's even like, yeah, it was happening anyway. We just sped it up a little bit. But he doesn't say this, but I feel like by a few hundred years. But Will, I'd like to know your thoughts, because intentionally, especially because we were recording this, I mean, we were sitting down in the theater like 3.5 hours ago, Will. So sure. It wasn't really that long ago. So it's all still very fresh for Will and I. I actually don't know what you thought about any of the film.
I think in general now, I think I'm also at a place where there's so many of these movies and this content that like it just doesn't serve a purpose to get upset or angry or up in arms. You know what I mean? Like there is almost, because as soon as the one thing's here, the next thing is coming, and like there's very few things that I'm super precious about. I suppose if somebody was making like the Wally West movie, I would be like, okay, I have very high expectations. But for a lot of these characters, I love Aquaman, and I read that book for a while, and Jeff Winstead I think sent me that run from the 80s, which I want to say that blue suit is kind of modeled after.
Yeah, that's I think the 1985. I think it's pre-Crisis. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's our buddy Jeff Winstead is a huge fan of that specific era, but that miniseries of Aquaman. Yeah.
And that suit was dope.
Yeah. It's like just a cool reference that they could work that in. But it's fine. It was fine. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was terrible, but at the same time, I just kind of kept feeling like it's just a bit of a bummer that with The Flash and even this, I mean, aside from Ezra's problems and a whole bunch of other things, that you're just sort of watching a dead franchise fizzle out. You know, and I know that there's more to come. And even then I'm like, I want to be excited and I'll check some of that stuff out, but I'm like too busy now to really get my personal feelings like wrapped up in a lot of this stuff the way I feel like I used to. Like I remember when Batman vs Superman came out and everybody just unequivocally shat all over it. I was like, did we see the same movie? And I was like, you know what I mean? Like felt, and Man of Steel, same thing, like I feel like I saw it in the theater with both of you more than once. And there was a hill to die on, and I don't even consider myself like a Snyderverse boy. I just liked those movies. So I think there were things to like about this. Similar to Tom, I'm a huge Patrick Wilson fan. I just love him to death. I think that he's a very underrated actor, or maybe he's exactly rated as he needs to be. I don't know, but it was nice to see him get an arc, and I loved him in the first one because he just really leaned into how hammy that villain part was, and it worked. He played it perfectly. Like, yeah, it wasn't written great, but he made it. And the costume design when he was actually Ocean Master looked fantastic. And the first one took me by surprise too, and I really liked it. But it's been 5 years, and so I don't know if this is the same or if it's just so much has happened in that time that like I think at the end of the day, it's like it's a bummer to know that everybody knows that this movie is just kind of like the whimper instead of the bang, at the end of everything. So it's not bad, but it's a movie for sure, and everybody I think had fun and did a good job and tried really hard, and it's like there's nothing. I don't want to talk shit on something that's like
no, but I mean I think that those are your honest feelings, and I agree. There is a feeling that's kind of like that a show was canceled, but you're still watching the episodes on your DVR because you're like, I like this. I want to see how it plays out, and then some of it's your imagination on what could have happened next, what might have happened next, and all of that. And I think that for all of the the knocks that people are likely to give the DCEU, this, the Mark One, the pre-James Gunn era, the casting, I think, for all of the Justice League was phenomenal. And I mean, this Jason Momoa Aquaman was very exciting because, the Aquaman that I knew best was the one from the Super Friends, and I since that first movie, I've read some comics that Will, you were kind enough to loan to me, and you kind of get a sense for who he was. But I mean, even in Peacemaker, they're making jokes about him, which
and he shows up to make a joke about himself, which is
right, exactly.
Jason Momoa is that
so. So I was excited to see him. I thought that he brings that sense of humor that I think sets him apart even from Patrick Wilson. It's like, I can't believe you can make jokes like this. There's little side comments where, Will, I believe you and I both chuckled, where he called him skinny jeans. I thought it was particularly funny that he called him Loki at one point, because that is very much the dynamic we're getting. In a lot of this movie is, Loki reluctantly helping Thor also after being broken out of prison, but that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of stories like that, so, and it's like, it's good. Don't run from that idea that people might make that comparison. And it's just sort of like, you kind of shrug it off, and I think they handle it in a good way. My biggest problem with the first movie was Manta. Didn't buy into it. I thought the helmet was stupid, and you know what? The helmet is still stupid. It is so big. I can't imagine anybody could wear it in that way. And I think he was more interesting in this one for sure, because it's not just him. He's sort of taken over. And the other kind of running gag I had after we first got our trailers for this was Manta's like, I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to kill his family. And he's going into all that. And I'm like, okay, so he's the Jason Momoa character from the last Fast and Furious movie. So he's like, basically, I'm going to Momoa in this.
Yeah.
And, and look, that's a marketing department. That's whatever. Just, it struck me as kind of funny. Huge shout out to Randall Park, who is on the short list of actors who inhabit both the DCEU and the MCU. Him and J.K. Simmons, those come to mind immediately. I don't know who else.
Jaimin Hansu.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. Yeah. Let us know. Oh, yeah. Willem Dafoe. Yeah. Let us know in the chat. Anybody who comes up.
He was Willem Dafoe in the last one.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, but I thought that a lot of that stuff was interesting. And look, my preoccupation for the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial was very limited. But when I heard, no pun intended with that word, sorry, when it was reported that one of their grievances was that she shit in the bed, it got my attention. I was focused. I'm like, I want to hear more about this. So to include the scene where she steers Arthur Jr.'s urine into Jason Momoa's face, I'm like, how old is this cut of this movie? Has nobody watched it in a while and thought for a second, that didn't really advance the story. It's an all right joke. I'm gonna say it took me out of the movie for a second, but I'm also on record that I've changed enough diapers that I, even before I had kids though, there's some Katherine Heigl movie where she has literal shit on her face, and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to see that. So that's usually not my favorite trait of baby rearing in movies, but these are sort of minor things. I think that the bulk of the movie is the two of them together, is Patrick Wilson, who's great. And I don't know. He's probably made a bad movie. I haven't seen it. I mean, let's talk about, just for in passing, that movie Hard Candy with, now Elliot Page.
Yeah.
But, just that portrayal, just like, oh my gosh, so yeah, everything I see him in, I think is great. So even if it's like, okay, they do a really good job explaining why they're teaming up together again, I'd say even if it didn't make sense, I'm like, that's all right. You bring him back on board. Do you feel that that's the case, Will, that even if they hadn't made it make sense as well as they maybe did, you're like, yeah, but I kind of want to see them together again?
Yeah, I also love like a buddy cop movie, and that's like Kirk and Spock in the J.J. Star Trek. There's always this like this is such a common dynamic that like Thor and Loki were not the.
Oh yeah, no, they did not write that book, yeah.
And but I do think like from a writing standpoint, it was like, of course they want to get this character back in, but he breaks him out of prison and they start working together. But I was kind of keeping track of stuff, and I was like, I think Jason Momoa could have just done all of this by himself. And then he's like, no, I wouldn't be here without him. And I was like, everything happens in this movie just for the sake of it needing to happen, so they can facilitate having, like all these. It's just, so it's fun to see that dynamic. I like that they gave him an arc. So it wasn't just like, because in the comics, yeah, like Tom said, he is very mustache twirly villain for the sake of being a villain. Right. So nice to see that come full circle, and then him to eat a hamburger and then get a mid-credit sequence of him putting a cockroach in it, because they were clearly like, fuck it, at this point, who gives a shit? Just, I don't know, put a cockroach in there. Maybe the people stick around, maybe they won't, but that's your credit sequence. Now get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you have to wonder if like the old DC regime, there was like a folder of a bunch of different script pages for what could have been a mid or end credit scene in this movie to set up something that maybe was going to happen. At least they didn't trick poor Henry Cavill into thinking once again that he was going to be Superman, and then changing. Will and I were talking about that before the movie, that he had those like couple days where he's like, yeah, I'm back, and then he's like, psych, I'm not. So
sad.
Yeah.
What's interesting, as even earlier this week, IMDb listed Ben Affleck in this movie as Bruce Wayne Batman. So hopefully picking that out.
I did hear that that's right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's not something I heard recently, but I did hear around the time that Flash was out, there was something with Bruce Wayne in this, right? I mean, it was reported well enough that that you remembered it, and I do remember now hearing it. So yeah, they were clearly, continuing their world building, their universe building, towards, I don't know, some kind of reconstituted Justice League. I mean, the having Wonder Woman in Shazam too, I mean, there was definitely a focus that I don't know, James Gunn just took the wheel, and he's like, he didn't drive the car into the ditch. He actually stopped the car, took the keys, threw them out the window, and he's like, I'm going to drive a different car, but thanks for your service, But I'm glad you reminded me of that, Thomas. So yeah, who knows what role this could have had. But Will, you had said this was supposed to come out before Flash, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out a long time ago. That's the thing, is like, it's been so much time in between, and they shifted so much stuff around, and there was a lot of moments in the script where it felt like they were doing things, they were answering questions from a test screen audience, that sometimes I feel like I'll see people course correct, and I'm like, just ignore that feedback. Like, sometimes people don't know what they're talking about, or what they were like. Randall Park gives a VO moment for like a minute explaining the technology and all this shit, and then Nicole Kidman just explains it again later, like 20 minutes, and that's like 10 people in a theater being like, I was kind of confused at the part where there was like the things. I think and like, just ignore those people. Just stick to what you're doing. It's fun in a movie to have questions and then have them answered later. And like the whole flashback sequence in the beginning, so they could get you up to speed because they knew that you forgot about everything.
And wait, let's not forget about Patrick Wilson grabbing the exposition trident in the middle of the movie.
Oh yeah, he's
like, oh wait, I know everything about this. Sit down. This shit is crazy.
That's right. And
that reminded me of when we found classic Spock in Star Trek 11, and he basically says how he got there.
Right.
When he tells New Kirk, I'm Spock, and
yeah,
you get the whole recap.
Tells Chris Pine everything he needs to know. But to that end, Will, one of the things, again, minor distraction as it's on the screen. There were times where they told us the place where they were on the screen. I'm like, we know they just said they were going there.
Yeah.
And then one of the, so I think that's the same thing. Test screenings are like, well, what was this part? And what were they doing? One of the locations that they gave us was somewhere in the Atlantic. Oh, really? Is that where they are? They're in the ocean?
Yeah. What? That's the thing. Also, no one's going to remember the names of any of these fucking places anyway. So who cares? Like, just go to the place and do the movie. There could be, and I think they kind of did this with the first one, and it's like they did a little bit with this. There's sort of a weird Indiana Jonesy adventure-y like piece of this that just lean into that. It's fine if people are confused. It's fun. Like, I don't think that people need all these questions answered. And also, I'd heard that there was a period where a lot of people were walking out of test screenings, and then recently heard that was because there was a version where they did kill the baby. I don't know if that's true, but I would be interested to. I doubt that they would go that far, but I'd heard that it was there was people walking out of test.
In the 21st century, I would hope they would.
I would assume that wasn't something that was happening, but I mean, look, there is a way that you kind of poke Arthur Jr.'s like hand, and there you get a couple drops of blood. I mean, so but yeah, so I don't know. I guess that they put a lot of focus on those test screenings, and that's kind of the problem. They had so many. I mean, this movie's been finished for a long time. Like, let's not even talk about when it was supposed to be done and all that. It's been actually done for a while. And, I think that there was a lot of attention to detail. I'd say that there was a sequence where I was just like, I don't know. It made me think of the Star Wars prequels in a way, and I am going to invoke a fairly famous sequence location in one of the original Star Wars movies. The undersea Jabba's palace that they went to that included a singing band and a Jabba-like character. Is that somebody from the comics? I'll ask you guys because
that was Star Wars envy.
Yeah, but Will, there was a tell from that character that helped you identify who the voice actor was.
Yeah,
right?
Very early on, I just heard in the voice. I was like, oh, it's Martin Short because it sounds a little bit like Jiminy Glick.
Yeah.
He is sort of like this.
Yeah. I know. So it's almost like you could imagine Jiminy Glick being like, so why do you fuck fish? You could just see him asking something like that. But yeah. So again, that's the justification for him going to get Orm is like, well, he knows this guy. But then it's also like, yeah, but this guy pretty much wants to kill you, so you probably could kind of cut him loose at that point. But
yeah, you think about the writing of that too, where it was like Orm's like, we can't just be using your muscles all the time to pick fights, okay? And then they go to the place that apparently Orm is needed to be at, and Orm goes, all right, flex your muscles, and then they just fucking get into a fight anyway. And I'm like, okay, all right, we just say, who cares? Like. It's a mess, and I think it's a mess also in part because there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of restructure and changing, and you're watching this poor Frankenstein version of a movie where like they might as well just release everything as it's originally intended, and who cares anyway because it's not going to go anywhere. Put Ben Affleck in it, put him and Michael Keaton in it,
and George Clooney.
Yeah,
Clooney.
Did Clooney shoot a cameo for it too?
No, I'm just saying put him in too, though. It's just like go all the Batman. Get a CGI Adam West in there. There's so many different things you can do. Thomas, in general, it seemed like there were a lot of things that really worked. We've spent a lot of time talking about Arthur and Orm. What are some other things that kind of stood out for you in terms of things that you feel like were engaging as the movie was unfolding for you?
What I thought was interesting when they got at the root of the sibling rivalry, the fact that Orm had been told by his father, your brother will one day come to take your crown.
Right.
And Arthur tells him, actually, I didn't really want it. You're a terrible person. So, and that's something, again, in the comics, Arthur has been replaced as King of Atlantis multiple times over the years. I mean, they never killed Volko, but at one point Volko took over because Arthur was spending too much time on the surface, and people, everybody got ticked off at him. So the whole political thing, which they didn't. For me, the first movie, and I think the first movie worked despite its flaws, and I could not explain to you because I didn't think that script was particularly sharp.
Same.
It was just big dumb action, and it's like people like women like Jason Momoa, shirtless.
But it just worked for some, and I feel the same exact way. I'm like, why do I really like this movie? I feel like I have this thing I've been feeling about a lot of movies where it's like the some of its parts is greater than the whole, where you're seeing the individual things that you like and just letting those be enough, and you're like, okay, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, Will, you were downright protective of the first one because we've discussed on record multiple times that someone we went to the first one with did laugh at a point where something not particularly funny was happening. So you were like, "Dude, that's not supposed to be funny." But and if only Agent Romanoff were able to have attended this with us, I was wondering. I'm still wondering. Maybe one day we'll find out if she sees it, what she thought of it. But Will, kind of the same question though. Let's focus on some of the things that you think do work. And look, I know that Manta in the first one wasn't something that stood out, but me, it's just residual feeling that I just felt like he didn't work in the first one, so it was still not huge for me. But what did you feel like worked well in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because of seeing the first one, I remember feeling I was like, Manta didn't need to be in this movie. They felt like they wanted to set him up for the sequel, which you could have done all of this organically in this movie and made that redemption arc his or done so. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of other options, and that was the thing I think that dragged that movie from 2 hours to 2 hours and 30 minutes or whatever it ended up being. But he's a cool character, and I was glad to see in this one as well. I know it seems goofy, but he's riding a glowing giant seahorse anyway, and your problem is Manta's helmet. You know what I mean? Like, what?
No, I mean the seahorse,
Storm,
the cephalopod, all that stuff. I'm like, it's fine.
Honestly, Topo, is that his name? Topo?
Yeah,
Topo Gijo. That was my favorite dynamic of that. I'm like, I honestly could have done a whole movie with Aquaman and Topo, and like Topo has to sacrifice himself in the end to save, and then you have those emotional feeling for a not real character, because it was like that's when it was like at its silliest, and it's inherently so silly, and the design around it is very silly in a fun way. It's beautiful to look at, and it's very creative, and it's like everything is super super interesting, and even Ryan Coogler was like, we wouldn't have really known what to do with Namor and a lot of those things if there wasn't an Aquaman that came before us. And I actually thought that ended up being part of the problem for the Namor story, was because like sometimes the swimming people seemed slow and like they had no technology, and then sometimes they were super powerful and had a bunch. And this gets that shit right, and it gets the goofy stuff right. And like I said, I mean, I think all the actors did a fine job. I'm not mad at anybody. Jason Momoa was funny, and there was enough jokes and things to break it up.
And by the way, if I get an opportunity to put Topo Gijo on the screen, I of course will immediately go and feature him on there. But and I mean, I think that we should talk about Dolph Lundgren because I think that I don't know. I mean, I think anytime he gets to do anything, we should be like, yeah, we're lucky that we're in a world where Dolph Lundgren gets to keep working. I mean, you don't see him, but I was kind of excited, and boy, what a long road it's been with Tamora Morrison, because after that book of Boba Fett, I'm just like, oh, man. I'm like, I used to really like that guy. That doesn't have anything to do with the actor.
I was going to say that's his fault. You can't blame him.
No, I know.
He didn't write those scripts.
No, I know.
The role of a lifetime. Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh, yeah, getting to be Boba Fett. Yeah, I get it, but it was just like, it was I don't know. residual Book of Boba Fett PTSD, I suppose. But in all honesty, it was. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really like that. It was just, that's one of those things, though, Will, for what you're talking about. It's been so long since the other movie where you're like, oh yeah, right, him.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. I mean, and interestingly, we saw this film at an AMC.
Yes.
And we expected that we would get the usual prerequisite Nicole Kidman telling us that they make movies better. We did not.
No.
And I'm almost thinking that they didn't show it. And I'm just like, is it because she's in the movie? Yeah. Like I went and saw Die Hard in the theater literally on Monday, and it was there. I saw Godzilla -1. It was there. So it's like, this is the first time. Yeah. Oh yeah. You saw Poor Things last night.
In the same exact theater 5.
Is it because she's in the movie? And I'm just like, have I seen a movie with her since that started? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I haven't. So I don't know. I don't know what that was. But Thomas, it didn't look like you saw it at an AMC, so we can't.
We have no AMC.
Okay.
Where in Florida are you again? I forget.
I'm in West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach.
Okay.
So
there is a Regal theater which is it's kind of ghetto-y, but yeah, it's not AMC. And they have Pepsi products instead of Coke.
Oh my God.
My favorite part, 2 of my students, whenever they went to see movies at AMC during the Nicole Kidman thing, they would stand up and salute.
I have had members of the audience stand up and applaud. I also have had large groups very excited. I've had people recite the Nicole Kidman, like I'm pretty sure word for word.
Did they ever film a new one for her, or is it the same old one?
They're supposed to. There was talk that that they were going to do another one. And it's funny how often this comes up on the show, but it's become such a part of, the experience. And, Will, like me, you've got the membership. So it would take a lot for me to see a movie somewhere else. It has to be a movie that it's a smaller film that I feel like will never actually, end up at an AMC,
I was in Florida like a week ago in the Tampa area, and I went to 2 different AMCs.
Yeah, we have none in West Palm Beach. Closest one is several cities away.
Oh, that sucks. Maybe Regal will get bought by AMC.
I mean,
they're both suck and win financially, so maybe.
Well, to the extent that there's actual merch, by the way, that you can get.
Look at that.
I'm surprised they don't have the speech on the back.
Yeah.
That's what they need, is a shirt with a really small font where it says all of that.
I want one that says "Heartbreak feels good" in a place like this.
I just think that's actually a great idea. So I bring that up because, one, I am fascinated by the reactions that people have to that. My gosh, who's this? We got. Wait, is it going to be a 2 pooch night?
This Daisy wanted to say hi.
Daisy wants to say hi. If Charles is sleeping, it's all right.
Charles is on the couch, but I'm dog sitting this little dog named Paul, and he's right next to me, but he runs away when I try to pick him up.
I think Daisy heard Will's voice and wanted to come in and check it out.
Oh, I haven't seen her in so long.
So Nicole Kidman I was definitely misled by trailers that didn't want to put too much Amber Heard in it. She's not in this movie very much. I just expected that maybe like, okay, we're going to get a lot more of her this time.
Nope.
And, there's that chunk in the middle where we don't get Amber Heard, but she's in it a fair amount. Like, I don't think she gets hurt early in what's that, Tom?
She's in Act 1 and Act 3.
Yeah, I don't think she's gone having anything to do with public perception of her. No. I think just for the story, it's like, she's not going to hang out with those 2. So
it hard, to be honest with you. Like, not obviously knowing that there's plenty of drama and a lot of problems on both sides of that argument.
Sure.
It would have been really fucking awkward if they tried to cut her out or recast her, whatever it was. That I'm like, just do it. It's fine.
Oh, the Deppsters were demanding.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers Discovery recast her.
CGI her face with somebody else or whatever. I'm just like, did she kill somebody? I guess I just don't understand the
No, I mean
problem.
the point is, I think the prevailing opinion is that I think Tom, you said this. What came out is that they're both terrible people, but Johnny Depp is a better actor, and he can open a movie even tomorrow. I mean, if they want to do Pirates 6 or whatever, I don't know. I think they can do it.
They were talking about replacing him with Barbie. I can't think of her name.
Margot Robbie. Yeah,
with Margot Robbie. I'd be down for that because Jack Sparrow was great for one movie, but by the second movie, I was over him. And then he's in 4, and he was in 3 more after that.
Yeah.
I know that the second Pirates movie ends on a cliffhanger, but I tapped out. When he's like running in a giant wheel or something in that movie, I was like, I don't ever need to see any more of these. First one was so well done. It was like one of the biggest, most pleasant surprises for a movie that I went to see, that first one, first one.
Well, initially there was no subtitle. And then when it started testing well, they gave it a subtitle. And then we got 4 more movies.
Yeah. There was like the first 3 like crushed. The 4th one was not good at all, like all things considered. And I remember seeing the 5th one in the theater because a friend of mine had done some of the visual effects. And I remember being like, this is fine. It's like the weirdest trajectory. But that first one took people by such surprise. And it opened at a time where you could throw names in a movie and people were interested. And you had Keira Knightley and
Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom,
yeah. And like that was just enough.
I know. I mean, and we're
struggling now.
We're still in a different time movie going. People, you have people who realize that they didn't miss going to the movies. They liked being able to just watch it at home and like 45-day window, all right. And even movies that aren't immediately on a streaming service, it's like, I'll be able to spend $20 and watch it at home. So you still have a lot of that. I mean, I've talked to people who like really there's still some people that haven't, like, I have kids about my age, and my son's 8, my daughter's 6, and they haven't taken their kids to the movies because the time to have started would have been during the pandemic, and then they just never really got into the habit. My kids love going to the movies largely because of ices, which Will and I we saw some people walking in with a giant icy, and we're like, well, there is some charm about that. But bringing it back to the Lost Kingdom, who is this movie for, in the sense that I'll ask each of you the same question. I'll ask you first, Tom. Somebody says, you saw Aquaman. Should I see it? Now, who would you say, okay, here's who probably wouldn't want to see it, but who is it like, yeah, you'll have fun. You know what I mean? Like, who do you think this movie is for, and who is it not really for?
I think it's pretty equivalent with the first movie for me. I like the script a little bit better than the first script because at least things make a little bit more sense. Manta's motivation is more clear. Orm's motivation is clearer. I don't think that some people will. I think some of your hardcore conservatives will dislike intensely the eco-friendly message.
Yeah,
because it's the fact that they're meeting. There was a big climate summit recently where they basically said, "Hey, this is a problem. Everybody agrees, but we're not going to do much about it."
Yeah. Oh, well, and the fact that Arthur addresses the United Nations, that's another big one, Yeah. So, I can see that. But, and again, I think people who are inclined to like this movie also have the same feeling that we all referenced is, well, I don't know if I want to bother, only because I know it's not going anywhere, that the story in no way really continues. And, it seems like, scuttlebutt and rumor is that Jason Momoa is going to play Lobo, and that even if he doesn't, probably not going to be somebody we see playing Aquaman again, So, I think it's like, you got to be diehard. You got to love Aquaman. You got to really like these movies. And I'm like, I do think, like Will said, it is very well done. Some of the CGI is a little bit more cartoony than I usually tend to like, but it's not like rampant throughout the movie. You know what I mean? It's just there were a couple sequences that I'm like, okay, this takes me out of it just a little bit. But yeah, I really think that this movie is basically for the diehards. And as we're talking, this is the day that it opened. This is the Thursday afternoon screenings are the first. So we don't really know how it's going to do, but I would say the expectation is that it's not going to be something to be impressed by. I think,
certainly not over $1 billion. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw. Go ahead, Tom.
What's fascinating is Warner Brothers has three movies coming out between the 15th and the 25th. We got Wonka on the 15th, Aquaman 2 on the 22nd, and then we get Color Purple the musical on the 25th. It's like you're counter programming against yourself, Warners. Usually you counter program against other studios. It's like we're trying to appeal to everybody.
Part of me wonders if both Wonka and Aquaman 2, they're just kind of dumping. Like, I think that I honestly think that they hope that Color Purple does the best out of all three of those movies.
Because Wonka did better than expected.
It's true. I mean, that movie, without being mean, I saw that trailer once and I was like, this is unequivocally not for me.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. I was very, very, because when I heard they were making it, I was like, no, stop. Why? Yeah. And then when I went to see it, and I'm like, and what's his Muad'Dib? I can't think of his name. Chalamet.
Yeah.
Chalamet.
Yeah. I've never disliked him, but I've always wondered, why is he in everything? But I thought he was perfectly charming as the young Gene Wilder version of Willy Wonka.
Yeah, no, I could see that. There's a part of me that kind of wonders about it, and the fact that you were pleasantly surprised by it means that I would probably at least check it out at some point, probably not theatrically. But look, it's come out. My wife read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with our son earlier in the year, and I mean, the conversation I had with my wife is like, well, yeah, we haven't watched the Gene Wilder one. I don't know why we would go see this, with a kid, it's like, and right. The odds of him ever seeing the Tim Burton one are very slim. So yeah.
I think with the Wonka thing, and it's not even Wonka necessarily. I think I reached my limit for the CGI fest that movies have become, like 5 years ago with the first Aquaman. Like, that was the threshold. And I was like, this is the last time I really understand how this all works. And now when I see any kind of movie that's that way, I just yearn deeply for it to feel like it's taking place in a real place and there's real texture. Like, even when Orm and Aquaman are walking around in that like jungle area, I'm like, they pan out. I'm like, it's just digital landscapes. I'm not. Yeah. None of this is in a real place. I know that it's supposed to be giant plants and shit, but like, to get unnecessarily nerdy about it, I went back and rewatched all of the Transformers movies up until number 5 or whatever it was.
Oh, the Michael Bay ones?
Yeah, because I saw Rise of the Beast and I was like, why do I not like this, even though I should love this movie? And it was the same feeling. I was just realized I was watching a cartoon. I wasn't watching like a live action. So I go back to the first Transformers and I was like, this movie is fucking incredible. Regardless of a lot of the issue, like little issues here and there, the way that he filmed real plates and shots and exploding things and then dropped the CGI into the real locations gives it such an incredible difference in feeling of, like, go back and rewatch that movie and you'll be like, fuck this. Wow. Like, it still somehow holds up better than a lot of what we're seeing. And I think that's what I just miss is feeling like the epic awe and scale of things, because it feels grounded in some way. And I understand we're talking about a movie where there's underwater glowing seahorses and all kinds of stuff. So it's sort of a moot point. But I think at the end of the day, like, my feelings on Aquaman 2 are my feelings on Wonka, on any of that stuff, like Marvel's, whatever. I saw Poor Things the night before. It was great. This is my speed now. I'm leaning back into the more artsy side of things.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, I think that's sort of just a big part of our little Will Sterling growing up, and leaving some of those childhood things behind. I'll be interested to see what our pal John Nolan, the Raging Rhino, thinks when he sees it, because Tom, our friend John Nolan, who we've gotten to know through the podcast, saw Justice League in the theater 7 times, and those are all the Joss Whedon cut.
Yeah.
So
the Joss Whedon cut 7 times.
Yeah. And like, he even admits that part of it is just because he loves those characters so much to see them together on the screen. But and he doesn't gush and love everything that comes out. But so he's a real barometer. If he were to tell me he didn't like this, another buddy of ours who we referenced, Jeff Winstead, doesn't really go out to the movies very much. But when there's a time for him to see this, I don't know, during a free trial of Max or whatever, I'll be interested to know what he thinks. That's sort of what I'm getting at when I think this movie is for people like that, though, who kind of see everything. The main reason why, as much as I love having an excuse to go to a movie in an afternoon with Will, it's like, this is coming out on the 22nd is the official release date, but we could see it on the 21st. And, just through the end of the year is so busy. And then my kids don't go back to school till January 8th. I'm like, this is like, I see it opening day, or maybe don't ever see it. And I thought it was important to do one of these, because it's, it's consistent. It's like, if we're doing everything in the DCEU, I think it was good to do it. And look, I'm glad I saw it. And I kind of characterize it, because my wife asked me, how was it? I'm like, well, it's not bad. It's not great. Will, does this get the patented Will Sterling fine rating, or is it sub fine? Is it fine, please?
I'll give it the solid fine, because at this point there's no need to shit on, like, to beat a dead horse. You know what I mean? Like,
but when a movie is just an absolute complete disaster,
not that.
Yeah. There's movies that need to be beaten, I think. For me, it was
Black Adam, The Flash.
Well, for me, it was
God.
For me, it was not in this universe. But Don't Worry, Darling was the movie that I saw, and I know I had a difference of opinion. I was angry. I was hate tweeting from my seat in the theater. Like, I couldn't go to my car. I was so angry.
I didn't love it, but I hated it less than you. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes, absolutely.
One thing which I think about from time to time, because I've dreamed of playing all kinds of superheroes as an actor since I was a little kid, and all of the parts have come and passed me by. Maybe, who knows? There's a confluence of events coming, because I genuinely was like, I would, of course, take any role if I was cast in something and do it with glee. But I'm like, it would be so much fun to play Booster Gold. Like, what a goofy, silly character. And they're doing that as a TV show. And I'm like, if they do it like the Peacemaker, it could be really, really special, because he's got that's a surprisingly like deep character that, like, even that one Justice League Unlimited episode. I'm sure, Tom, you remember that one, right? It's yeah. Everyone's like, how the fuck is a Booster Gold episode like the best episode of this show?
Thanks, Green Lantern.
Yeah. I hope that one comes together well. That would be a fun show.
So correct me if I'm wrong, either of you. We're not getting anything until the James Gunn's like younger Superman movie, right?
We're getting Creature Commandos next year.
Yeah.
Is that theatrical though?
No. That's
okay. Yeah. But that's the next time they'll be on the big screen. They're gonna do the hard reset. When an appliance isn't working, you pull the plug and you wait a little bit before you plug it back in, and that's basically what James Gunn is gonna do. So
actually, he's like taking the appliance to Goodwill, buying a new one with all the bells and whistles.
But yet he was online talking about how great the appliance was, and it's one of the best ever. But at the same time, he's still getting rid of it.
More than I was frustrated with the Flash movie was that fucking hype, man. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, usually I don't like it when people hype a movie up that I want to see, because I don't like any expectations. I want to go in as blind as I can. But nobody would shut the fuck up about how like revolutionary that movie was, and how like life-changing and incredible. And I was just like, what? How? I'm really, really hoping that we can that with Aquaman, at least, we're really just closing the chapter, and we could stop talking about all of the past 10 years worth of nonsense that's been the hate, love, Snyderverse into, you know what I mean? It's like just been such a mess that I'm like,
Yeah,
and now it's done.
It's we're a couple months shy of it being 15 years, by the way, because didn't Man of Steel come out in 2009? Oh, no, it's not. No.
It's
right.
10 years exactly.
I know. I remember now. It's 2013 because the earliest episodes of the Bladtcast were about how Man of Steel was coming out within months. Within like a month. So. Well, yeah. So look, I'm intrigued by all of it. I think that they definitely get a chance to shake the Etch a Sketch and wait before they start drawing again. Marvel has the task of trying to course correct while you're still driving. You don't get to put the brakes on. And
actually, they are putting the brakes on. Deadpool 3 is the only MCU movie coming out next year.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. The Deadpool 3 is the only thing that comes out. Yeah, and I mean that obviously is a byproduct of the strikes, but yeah, you're right. I mean, but it's not like they're really stopping, and then they've got some issues to deal with in terms of Jonathan Majors.
Yeah,
but a guy who has millions. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom. I was talking over you.
The Blade script has been a hot mess. I mean, when the director bails, when your star is saying the script is terrible, that's bad.
Mahershala Ali's script is bad.
At one point, yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad that he let Wesley Snipes read it, and he's like, "Even I wouldn't have done this."
Really?
That's when no. That's
oh my God. I was like, no, that's not.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Wesley Snipes will work for tax money.
Yeah. So no, I know, but it's it'll. I don't know. I always talk about how if I'm sitting down to watch a movie, I want to enjoy it. I'm hoping to enjoy it, and I hope that when we get another DC movie, that we're all talking about how much fun it was and how it's what we wanted. Having James Gunn, in he's not just in the captain's seat; he's basically every position on the bridge. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, we'll get that expectation. I mean, I think Peacemaker was exactly the tone that I wanted, but I'm glad I mentioned Peacemaker because it reminded me that one of the worst aspects of this movie was the lazy music usage. Born to be Wild. Are you kidding me? Born to be Wild?
Like, I've never heard that in a film before.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would have been worse would have been Bad to the Bone, by the way. That would have been even worse. And Spirit in the Sky is a great song, but they use it twice. They use both. They use two songs 2 times. Yeah. And
Guardians 1 used Spirit in the Sky.
Yeah. It was a weird like James Gunn kind of music or Thor Ragnarok music choice with the Zeppelin in the beginning kind of feeling. I mean, this didn't have Zeppelin in the beginning, but it was whoever it was.
No, and not to address the content of the film, but the fact that Thor: Love and Thunder had an all Guns N' Roses soundtrack and it's all songs from Appetite for Destruction. I'm like, just put some effort into it. I mean, that is something that I feel like from James Gunn, and just what we really got from Peacemaker is like, we're going to get some good music. I don't know. I was just like, especially when Born to be Wild starts again in the credits, I'm like, I mean, just try.
They missed an opportunity to bring back Who Let the Dogs Out. Honestly, when they finally team up, but you know that everyone would have been like, "What the fuck?" and everybody would have laughed. It would have been great. And then that movie, that song could have just had a big comeback.
That's a great point. And
when about it, come on.
So yeah, we're kind of saying like, if you think you might like this movie, go ahead and see it. If you're like, I'm pretty sure I don't want to see Aquaman 2, then definitely just trust those instincts because it's not going to win you over. You know what I mean? Somebody reluctantly sitting there with their arms folded. I don't think this movie wins them over. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen.
No, I think you're correct. I saw Ninja Turtles, the new one, twice in the theater. And the second time I saw it, this woman was on her phone the entire time. And there was somebody next to her and I was like, God, this lady's really obnoxious. But it's like one of those things where I'm like, do I lean across my friend who's sitting next to her and tell her to knock it off, or but I'm not kidding. The entirety of the movie, she's on her phone.
I would have gotten the management to throw her butt out.
On her phone. Yeah. And I'm like, her poor date, like whatever, like there's somebody next to her, but I can't see really. And at the end of the movie, I realized it's her fucking son. She didn't give 2 fucks about that movie or even spending some quality goddamn time with him.
Yeah.
She's just like on her phone. And I'm like, 1, it's clear this movie's not for you. 2, like just give it a go for your son. Are you serious? So like with Aquaman, I'm like, take your kids there and just enjoy it with them. Enjoy it with people who like don't take this kind of stuff too seriously. But yeah, it's certainly not going to change any hearts and minds. And I hope with some glee that conservatives get needlessly angry about the fact that there's a climate story.
Before we wind everything down and we give all of our appropriate plugs and how to keep in touch with us, I do want to use as an example how I think the best way to sell this movie is the Japanese trailer. So let's enjoy this. Are you guys hearing it?
Yeah. Aquaman の監督主演で送る完全未体験海中アクションエンターテイメントかつてない未知の海底王国の脅威
I love the way this guy talks over it like it's a Japanese game show.
Oh yeah, I'm the king of Atlantis.
彼の力は海の生物すべてを操ることができる
True king builds bridges, right?
True king builds bridges.
During King Atlan's time,
I mean, they do a great job selling it. I love that guy's voice, just sort of that. Anyway,
I would love to see that movie.
That's the difference.
There's an energy to marketing and trailers where you're like, oh man, I can't wait. And then you see it and you're like, oh, they really know how to sell something.
Anyway, I thought that that was a little bit fun. Well, we mentioned it at the top of the show. Will, if people want to pre-order your debut novel, please let them know where they can do that.
That's Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com are the easiest places. Bookshop.org and Goodreads. Also through the publisher, Subplot Publishing.
And remind us of the title, please.
Fame by Misadventure.
Fame by Misadventure.
I want an autographed copy.
Those will be up probably next month. I'm having my website figured out, and I'm gonna just so that way I can fulfill orders from the site for those specifically because I'd be shipping those out directly. So those will be up probably next month. If people want a signed copy, my elevator pitch, just in case anybody needs it, is Chinatown Meets the Real Housewives. So do with that what you will. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it, and I will make sure that I get my copy signed by the author himself. Very excited for that, and people can find you right, Will Sterling _ That's still the place, right?
Will Sterling _ on all the things, and I'm just now seeing that trailer. I'm like, if they just titled it Aquaman -1, we might have been okay. But yeah,
and. Thomas, people who are, enjoying your thoughts on the film, if they want to find more of that sort of input from you, where do they go to do that?
You can find me at Blurred PhD on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads.
Good old Threads. There was a minute where I was putting Threads in all of my promos, and then I kind of forgot. So I'll make sure that I do that. And obviously we have Bladtcast every week. We have that, and of course the show that I've been doing the last 5 months or so, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcast Network. Who Are These Broadcasters? We had a big fun pre-Christmas episode this week including comedian Don Jameson was on with us, and we had some fun. Will, we started celebrating Christmas. Now, you know that I did an episode where we reviewed the Tom Snyder appearance by Kiss from 1979. Right. This was an appearance that Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley made on the Howard Stern interview in 1993, and all they wanted to do was promote Kiss Alive 3, and Howard was not letting them. And it was some fun content to dive into. So anyway, so there's always that, and of course, there's going to be some more Christmas celebrating for our audio audience. Our next episode of the Bladtcast is going to be an entire episode devoted to Christmas in the Stars, the Star Wars Christmas album from 1979, not to be confused with the Star Wars Holiday Special from 1978. This is something entirely different.
What?
And I'm joined by the gang from Shitty Song of the Week, a podcast I've been on a couple times. And we go track by track through all 9 tracks of Christmas in the Stars. And you might ask yourselves, what's literally an odd number? Why are there only 9 songs? Because track 9 is 8 minutes. So that'll tell you a little bit about Christmas in the Stars, an album that most people don't know about. And there's a lot of reasons why, 9 of them, really. So you'll get that. And I'll also be repurposing an interview that I did for our friends over at Geekscape. I spoke with a man named Jeremy Kuhn, who directed a documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special.
I've seen it.
His documentary, Grave Disturbance in the Force, is fascinating. It's there's so much that I didn't know about it. Thomas, you've seen it. The footage from the Donnie and Marie show using Star Wars characters and Chris Christopherson playing Han Solo. I'm like, this is even more fascinating than the Star Wars Holiday Special.
I have to watch this.
Yeah. Oh, I highly recommend it. And Jeremy and I had a lovely chat. So that'll be posted probably Christmas Eve. And we'll have all that stuff and plenty of fun musician interviews, things like that coming up. And who knows what else in the new year. But you can find me Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook at Christian DMZ. I want to thank Thomas. I want to thank Will. I want to thank everybody who was here as we break down Aquaman 2, our instant reactions. There really weren't a lot of spoilers to give, just sort of like, Aquaman prevails in the end. The Flash had so many spoilers in it that it's kind of refreshing, to be like, yeah, you don't really have to worry about giving anything away. But so fun chat as always. We wish everyone Merry Christmas. I know Hanukkah's passed, but I hope everyone had a happy Hanukkah. But as always on the Bladtcast, we do celebrate Life Day. So happy Life Day, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.